All right. Welcome back to, well, what week is this? I forgot. Week 5 of Getting Back to Work live on YouTube. So we'll get started in a couple minutes. Got on a little bit early, but we'll give some people a little bit of time to get on. So appreciate everyone who's making it. It's good to see everyone back again. Again, I'm Leo Das with Group 337, also Inside Access Control, Visitor Management now, and also the Multifamily Access Control. We do this live every single week to talk and have a conversation about the getting back to work as it relates to access control, the impacts that are there, and really to try to start a conversation, if you would, around some good stories and information that are out. There's a ton of information. It's a good opportunity here to reflect on a handful of stories on a weekly basis that are, could make an impact or drive a conversation. So that's our purpose. So we'll get kicked off in a couple minutes. We'll let people make their way here, and then we'll do it. So thank you very much. Actually, while we're waiting, also another good opportunity. If you have any questions or want to say anything live, I can repeat and get out. We can have a conversation. Please do in the live chat that's on the right-hand side. That'd be great. So thank you for doing that. Oh, man, my spelling was terrible. Thank you, Andy. I'm doing great. It's good to see you. And Bert, who's Ronald Esgard? You know who Ronald Esgard is. No, I appreciate it. You're funny. I like that guy too. All right, so why don't we do this? We'll kick it off. So 3 good stories. Let's start off by first want to thank OpenPath for sponsoring this and to give us the opportunity to do this. Really appreciate their support in doing this. So tomorrow we'll have a newsletter that goes out. It takes these 3 stories plus add a little bit more information and the live stream in there. It's another good place to have a conversation. So please sign up for that. So 3 stories that we picked for today. One of them is actually from Domo, if you're familiar with them. A really cool company. Met them a while ago at Salesforce, at Dreamforce. They were at a booth there. But they did an article, a guy by the name of Scott Resch did an article, why this management style is key to post-COVID success. It's part of they did like a white paper around the way people utilize HR practices and the impacts that they have there. So we'll talk about that. The next one is how the pandemic may change work-life balance forever. It was a conversation from Andrew Simpson of the Insurance Journal. So went to the insurance side because there's been a lot of conversation around the impacts of OSHA and insurance and risk, really. So we found an article on that end to talk about it. And it's really about things and practices to put into place to help you as you the people are easing them way back into the workplace. Then the last one from the Tech Republic, NF Mendoza had an article around COVID-19 highlights need for business and security leaders to work together to prevent cyber attacks. Pick this one because there's been a lot of conversations about the exposure that now people working from home and the impacts that they have, as well as some of the people that come onto site and the rest. So we'll dig into it. So again, we'll start off with the article from Domo, which, again, you can download this information. We'll put the links inside the show notes, and then it'll be part of the newsletter tomorrow. But what I found interesting about this, why this management style is key to post-COVID success, they talk about a professor who put a study together, and he developed a theory, actually, around human work motivation and management. They called it the Theory X and the Theory Y. It's a guy by the name of Douglas McGregor. Theory X is a management approach that assumes workers are generally lazy, not self-motivated to work, and need to be closely monitored by management to be able to succeed. They need like incentive structures, and they're tied to their output, and they optimize productivity. That's Theory X. There's a Theory Y, in contrast, which is more about participative, invitational approaches, they write. It suggests treating workers with compassion and incorporating them into a broader sense of organizational ethos and shared commitment. So Theory X, command and control. Theory Y, more collaborative, more open, and they're talking about that the shift is going to need to be happening. And basically, what you're starting to see though is organizations put things in the process, like applications at the front end, or things that are watching what you're doing on the computer, things like that on the internet, right? Where it's more of a command and control, because there's this sense that if your butts aren't in the seat, they can't control. They don't know if you're being productive, and there's a belief that you need to put more controls in place, when they're actually saying that people could be far more productive and just happier if you trusted them, if you use compassion, and if you worked that way. So they talk about that evidence overwhelmingly just demonstrates that the approach with theory Y produces better results. So again, not the command and control, but the other one. And yet it's getting a lot of criticism, because there's a belief that there's a desire to change and to pursue it with less regard to the humanity side of motivation of those that they're directing. So there's some conflict. I actually think the conflict in reading it actually has more to do with the comfort of management styles that people have, right? So this idea that they feel like their job is to make sure that you're doing what you need to do, and they want to manage the productivity that you have by output and putting metrics to go do that. They showed a study from Gartner on HR practices that expects 80% of companies to use some form of remote monitoring technology by 2020. That's a lot. That's up from 50% who use it with all remote workers now. So if you were using remote working before, you might have had some of these measures in place, but now they believe 80% of companies are going to start doing that, which is kind of crazy. Well, what I found really interesting was they tied in the health side, and this is where it affects on the access control end and some of the practices we have in visitor management, where is that managers are not only going to start monitoring the productivity, but you're seeing some of them now start to monitor things like temperature scanning and contract tracing and facilities management. It's this dependency on understanding people and really managing not only now their output, but then the health side. So it's just interesting, and it really gets into some complex thoughts of where things like privacy come into play and the approach that you take. And in my mind, it's more about not just actively putting these things in place, but thinking them through. They ended it with, if employees pursue policies to preserve their control or deploy solutions that maintains these fences between employees and data, they will risk perceptions that reopening the workplace looks a lot like old theory X, which is command and control, versus theory Y, which is really about trust and looking at productivity and not measuring people from a control standpoint, but measuring people from maybe an impact side, like a different way. So great story. They have much more detail. You have to sign up for it. Highly recommend you doing so. When you sign up for the report, they will give you more information, of course, on that end. That would make a lot of sense, but you got me. But think about it. Theory X of management versus theory Y of management. Theory X, approach of motivating by command and control. Theory Y being much more participative, innovational approach, treating people with compassion. Our systems need to start doing that. It goes back to the conversations that we've been having around the human centricity side of the access control systems and thinking them through. So thank you, Scott, for putting that article together. Found it super interesting. Next one was how the pandemic may change work-life balance around the office. And it was from the Insurance Journal. Again, not a place that I necessarily read a lot from, but found it interesting. A lot of parallels to some of the other stuff that we were talking about. It was this idea of what the workplace would look like and also the approach that you should take. So some practical stuff that was in there. Taking time off, so building that into the workflows. Scheduling flexibility, extending time off policies, helping employees better manage workloads versus some of the other like less common type approaches. They had some here that some companies said that they're even contemplating permanent shifts away from full-time office work, right? So we talked about that. So how do the systems that we're putting in place impact these new policies that people have around taking time off? Really big push on mental health. Everything from internal programs, from social isolation, potential burnout and anxiety, being purposeful around those, providing confidential mental health services. They talked about how SurveyMonkey is doing a lot of this right now, and they're utilizing actually their tools from an own internal surveying to be able to get information back. Found that to be interesting, of really touching, but doing privately, so people have the opportunity to express themselves, to be able to make sure that, you know, not only are they being productive and are you controlling, but then also making sure people are feeling better and not getting overly burdened. What I did find interesting was the taking breaks to prevent video conferencing fatigue, and SurveyMonkey was giving a $500 stipend that actually you could use for your home office, or they were allowing them to apply it to healthcare, to childcare. What I found interesting was I just saw an article online where Uber just did this also. So this seems to be a trend that people are trying to do. If you have the resources to do it, it seems to be something that people like. The stipend came across, I'm sorry, it can cover the, like I said, the childcare services, homeschooling, and then the other one I found was interesting, seems common sense, but I didn't think about it, was they also are timing days off, like giving every other Friday off or once a month, things like that. So trying to really force people to do it, because they found that people don't take the time off. Inside this article, I found this interesting. There's a calendar software company called Clockwise, not heard of them before, but they process 500,000 calendars that people have digitally. The CEO said that they show that employees are spending an average of 12% more time in meetings per week than they did before the pandemic. Seems kind of obvious if you think about it, because we're more online. I find myself, like even today, forcing myself to have to go take a walk instead of sitting and doing video. That there's like this now belief that everything has to be on video when some of them actually don't have to be. So that to me was related to, do you have to do, the other part that they did here that I thought was kind of cool was they told the employees that if they schedule a meeting, to have it meet 5 to 10 minutes after whatever time they originally planned it for. So purposely building in a period of separation. I notice on myself, I go from one meeting right to the next. I don't give myself the opportunity to sort of capture myself again, maybe take a break or get some water, use the restroom, do whatever. Where before, if you were having face-to-face meetings, you kind of did that. You were walking between office to office, you grab something to drink, you see somebody, you do whatever. We don't have that opportunity now. So building that into the sort of process you have, found that to be interesting. Giving gift cards to fitness centers, to local restaurants, things like that. Again, taking some of the savings that some of these people have and what they had to do with the offices, now applying them, though, to help for giving a better work-life balance. My big takeaway on this, we talked about before, is it's not just going to happen by itself. You have to be purposeful in the approach of this and having someone that owns it and is responsible for it. The other thing is, I believe if you're creating systems like our access control systems and visitor management, whether it's notifications, how do our systems help this area? If it's, I'll even say too, creating content that is not a technical sheet, but is a content that you can provide to your customer base to help them work through this, or finding content. I don't know, take this article, wrap it in an email and share it with them. I think will come across better and as a way to help your customers, like an indirect way of selling. Highly recommend that we start thinking about the human centricity, the behavioral sciences. It was our newsletter last week. Heavy behavioral science is needed, and I would spend the time doing it. Last article was a COVID-19 highlights the need for business and security leaders to work together to prevent cyber attacks. Bring this up because I've been watching it online, a lot of conversations. Our systems are involved in it. Everybody's systems are involved in it, and it needs to have more attention, frankly. So, new Tenable study came out. 94% of organizations experienced a business impacting cyber attack or are compromised within the past 12 months. 46% weathered 5 or more attacks. That's a lot. It's not surprising. Actually, it is surprising. I didn't think it would be 94%. I assumed, there was a lot, but I didn't assume 94. So that means only 6% haven't, which is kind of crazy. And then almost 50% have multiple ones. So want to bring some awareness to that, especially now that we're remote. Processes and systems that historically companies, you would take the time to implement and put into place. We had to kind of do it overnight, so scrambling a little bit. I think we need to pay attention to it, as well as our systems from the access control side. This use case wasn't, we were talking about cybersecurity a bit, but now it's even more. So a lot of good stuff happening. I know within the CIA organization, ASIS, ESA, the rest of them, around bringing the level of awareness on this. One of the causes that was noted was a disconnect between an organization's business and security, and it was been exacerbated by the COVID-19 break. Common understanding, the cybersecurity group, the business side, organizations aren't typically, with each other in one. It said by April, 41% of the respondents had at least one cyber attack directly related to COVID-19 in the last 12 months. That's crazy. Think about that. Almost, a quarter. I'm sorry, quarter. My math terrible. Almost 50% was half. So 41% of respondents, because of COVID, have had a cyber attack. The report found that 96% of the respondents developed COVID-19 response strategies. That's really good. 75% of the business and security leaders said that the COVID response strategies was somewhat aligned. That's scary that only 75% are. So again, bring the level of awareness up. It's going to be a problem. I do believe, again, because we didn't build some of these systems with this use case, it's going to expose us. So teams need to be purposely thinking about it. Another statistic to use, only 40% of security leaders can answer a high level of confidence that how secure at risk are we? So just a simple question like how secure or at risk are we? 40% can only say at a high level. That's a little scary. Only 4 in 10 security leaders met the requirements needed from a business leadership side of understanding the confidence around it, that it aligned strongly with the cybersecurity and the business needs. So that means they're in conflict. And that's going to only create major problems. Despite the rash of cyber attacks, it said that only 25% of the security leaders regularly review security performance metrics with business stakeholders. That's a small amount of people. So again, I don't want to belabor this. In summary, it had four key takeaways from the report. Number one, a climate of uncertainty is ripe for cybersecurity threats, and to create a higher profile of concern, a topic that needs to be at the board and at the senior leadership level. It needs visibility. Security leaders are really grappling to provide business leader peers with what they want. So really, frankly, clarity on what the company's cybersecurity process and plan is. They don't feel like they're getting a seat at the table, and they need it. Many organizations don't align security with business, which creates a disconnect in managing cyber attacks. Again, I've been in meetings and have heard people say before, am I more exposed today than I was yesterday? And that has been the driving force of whether they should do things. That's scary, but that's frankly how people think about it. And I think that needs to change. And COVID again, and us being remote, is only going to drive that separation even more. So, and again, this is pretty straightforward. Cybersecurity must develop in tandem with business strategies. So 3 Gator articles, trying to bring a little different bit of information. If you have questions or want to say something, please put it inside of the comments. Agreed, Mug Fitness, appreciate you being here again. That mental health is key. So that was from the second article that we had, which was How the Pandemic May Change Work-Life Balance by Andrew G. in the Insurance Journal. Mandy Love Theory Why, totally agree too. So that's from the first article, which was the management style, which again, I'll repeat it because I do think it's important. Out of the MIT Sloan School, Theory X, Command and Control, Theory Y, really trusting your people, watching and being careful how much you monitor them, and building this form of trust. And then the last one, cybersecurity exposure with the systems, extremely important that we get it aligned with the business side. It's only going to get worse. So with that, week 5, I really appreciate everyone, the attention, the engagement here online. Again, appreciate OpenPath for the sponsorship of this to allow us to do this. If there's any questions or anything that you need, please reach out. We're online. You'll see us at the inside access control, inside multifamily access control, inside visitor management. You can reach me on LinkedIn, email me directly. Please stay healthy. Please stay safe. Thank you again, and I'll see you next week.